is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, for as much attention that is being paid to pro-lifers when it comes to the abortion issue and its impact on the November election. The left is spitting up all over itself. I don't know if you've noticed. Doesn't get quite the attention for obvious reasons, but the Eva Peron of East Lansing, the good Governor Gretchen Whitmer, had this to say.
Sorry, I said she's freshly Botoxed, by the way.
Had this to say about any limitations, since this is a state-by-state issue at present, any limitations you would support in the state of Michigan?
Should there be any limits on abortion after viability, which usually falls somewhere between 24 to 26 weeks?
You know, the Roe standard did have that, and that's precisely what we've been fighting for. But
so
at the
you
end of the
support
day,
that, Governor? Just to be clear, you would support some limitations after viability?
I would support the Roe standard becoming the law of the nation again. That's exactly where I'm at, and I know that's where most Americans are. But I'll also share with you, Kristen, I am not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor.
Oh, my God.
I support the Roe standard, whatever that is. I don't really know. But I have heard other people say it, and the president said that he wants to make Roe federal law. So that's what I support, too. I don't know the particulars. But, hey, look, I'm also not a doctor. Right. That's the way of, hey, look, I don't want to take a position on late-term abortions, partial birth abortions, live birth abortions. I don't want to take positions on that. So I just sort of, the Roe standard, because everybody likes Roe, right? The Roe standard, you know, that standard, the standard thing that Biden keeps talking about. I'm for that. Oh, okay. All right, Governor. Very helpful. Bill Maher had Piers Morgan and columnist from the Financial Times on his program over the weekend. He had an unintentional but yet helpful moment of candor. Ghoulish as it is, at least it's honest. What an atheist says about abortion.
Not if you believe it's murder. You know, that's why I don't understand the 15-week thing. Or the Trump's plan is, let's leave it to the states. You mean, so killing babies is okay in some states? Like, I can respect the absolutist position. I really can. I scold the left on when they say, oh, you know what? They just hate women, people who aren't pro-life, pro-choice. They don't hate women. They just made that up. They think it's murder. And it kind of is. I'm just okay with that. I am. I mean, there's 8 billion people in the world. I'm sorry, we won't miss you. That's my position on that. What?
That's quite harsh, Bill.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not
Is that not your position if you're pro-choice?
Isn't that mainly because you don't like children? I mean,
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no. I mean, but if you are, you said you're pro-choice. That's your position too.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Sorry, we won't miss you?
It's harsh, but it's your position. Yeah, it is. It's kind of murder. It kind of is, Bill Barr says. Yeah.
But he's okay with it.
I'm okay with it because I'm my own God, and we won't miss you.
Horrible
And
thing to say.
well, why is it? He's just being honest. That is transparently, that is nakedly the position.
All right.
It's just nobody uses those terms because you have to dress up something ghoulish in flowery terms to make it palatable. Nobody wants to think they're as coarse as Bill Maher, but they're also not as honest as him, at least on this issue. Are they? For more on this, pleased to be joined by Marjorie Dannenfelser. She's the president of SBA, Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America. Marjorie, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, such a pleasure to be with you. I enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, that was quite a statement from Bill Maher. We appreciate him stripping off the veneer, don't we?
Yeah, I think we're supposed to think he's a real stud. He's so bold. He'll just say it like it is. And I think we're supposed to admire that. You could tell the crowd did. And it led to his guest saying, yep, that's my position. He said, yep, that's the position. It is extremely helpful. It reminds me of Christopher Hitchens, who would take us to the logical end, that if you are your own master of your own destiny and nobody else, well, okay, these people are in my way. All those children are absolutely not purposed by anybody or any entity. They're just in our way. So clear them out, like the underbrush, like the original founder of Planned Parenthood said. And they're basically the underbrush of humanity.
Right. I mean, it's everything needs to be looked at through the lens of my interest, not anybody else's. And then, and this is where that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. All those special needs kids, those kids born into poverty, they just are really useless and purposeless. They're commodity. And on the other hand, if I really want them, maybe they're a good prop for me. And, in reality, when you have a child, that is not how you view them, and he wouldn't either. It's just other people's children that you can have disdain for, that don't look like you or have your abilities.
Well, how much do you think climate change is, because when we were kids, I just remember saying, don't have too many kids because, we're going to overpopulate the planet.
Yeah, I think that is definitely still the case. Of course, that argument really doesn't work anymore because we're not replacing our population so that old people die without help and support, except for from the state. So the state has become our insurance policy for old age, not our children. So it is quite a moment. I thought it was really interesting what he said about what is this whole 15-week thing or any increment? Anything less than zero is inconsistent with your thinking. I mean, I'd like to know what y'all think about this, but it seems to me that's what every human rights movement in this country did. They moved incrementally until everyone saw the people that we're talking about in abolition and in other stages. Those people we're talking about are not commodities, not products. They're human beings with rights that transcend what we have thought about them up until now.
Well, I mean, I agree. And to the whole limitation, you take what you can get that is politically feasible where you can get it in the furtherance of protecting life from conception to natural death. I mean, that's my view on it. You can't wave a wand and turn California into Texas or Illinois into Florida. So, or frankly, the composition of the Congress or the presidency. So you have to, in a free society, you have to fight these things out through elections and the legislative process. So, of course, I mean, he's being disingenuous. The people who are advocating for particular restrictions are saying this is how far we think we can advance the flag on this landscape, which is, eminently reasonable and commonsensical.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're all the children standing on the railroad track, and you run over there and you pull as many off as you can. But you definitely don't wait forever. We can't save them all, so we might as well let them all just stand there until they get mowed down.
No.
I know that's a pretty brutal analogy, but it is basically the same. And it's consistent with knowing that they all have human dignity and should have equal protection under the law.
Well, so you wrote this piece. I know your position on Trump's position of leaving it to the states. So why is Trump wrong to say essentially, look, we got the justices that overturn bad law, that would be Roe, and the pro-life movement through organizations like American United for Life have been arguing in the courts for decades to overturn Roe, get this back to the states, and you fight it out in the states. And that's where we're at. So why would we want to federalize it again, federalize the issue, particularly when Joe Biden is trying to do that very thing? Why not federalism the issue by deferring to the states?
There are many things that are appropriate federalism issues, education. Most issues, actually, are better handled and the closest they are to the people. But there's some issues, and this has been the position of the pro-life movement since 1973. There are some issues that transcend boundaries and geography, and you get to the place where you are willing to communicate whether you live shouldn't depend on where you live, and that we as a nation should at least be for a federal minimum standard. But I do want to be clear about Trump's position. Clearly, he is far the better candidate than Biden. And that is where I and my organization stand in terms of our work in the battleground states. It will be to keep Biden out next time around, because if he is elected, they've already federalized this issue. They've already got their bill that is way worse than the, quote, Whitmer Roe standard. Their bill doesn't even mention the unborn child, and their bill, called the Women's Health Protection Act, which is a misnomer, would wipe out every single pro-life protection, not just gestational limits, but information for women, parental notice, conditions under which abortions can and can't be delivered, given the health of the woman status. But back to your question, it is a matter of human rights. Even in incrementalism under Lincoln, he was not pushing to have slavery in just a handful of states, and that would be fine, and let everybody figure it out for themselves. He believed in incrementalism in pursuit of a national standard, which was equal protection under the law for everyone.
Right, but I mean, if you put all your eggs in the federal basket, as it were, that's very high risk. I mean, if the idea is to advance the flag as far as you can in the direction of life, where you can, because if
No,
Biden,
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I mean, if Biden wins, they get control of the House and the Senate. That's not completely unfathomable. Or if it doesn't happen this time around, but 4 years from now, then now you lose all of the states that are moving in the direction of life because you lost a national election one time.
Well, that is exactly what they're going to do. There is no if. That is their plan. That is why he has to be defeated, and why we have to gain at least the Senate and hopefully the House and the Senate. That isn't my decision to put federalism in their hands. But and I would just say this: we are fighting state by state. It is the best and most grueling fight that we've ever had to fight for life, and each state being as ambitious, way beyond 15 weeks, 12 in Nebraska, North Carolina, heartbeat in Florida and Arizona, at conception in Alabama. These are states where, of course, you're not going to limit them to 15 weeks. The 15 weeks is just an argument for, I know we can't do it now, we don't have the vote, but we don't have a president, but just a federal minimum standard that's reasonable, that 47 out of 50 European nations already have. Even France has 14 weeks in its constitution. So, and they've had forever to argue and come to consensus. We've had a year and a half, or almost 2 years.
Well, doesn't the fact we've only had a year and a half speak to restraint, though, and say, look, this is something that, look, what you just said about Europe is absolutely true, but it's not widely known. And we know from the survey data that, there's overwhelming support for legalization, majority support, really super majority support for legalization. Now, restrictions gets into a whole nother discussion, but if you don't agree to legalization and then a discussion, then you're losing a lot of people, and you worry that, especially with 13 states having this issue on the ballot, that they federalize the issue and make it a referendum on this matter with sort of the binary, however disingenuous it is, the binary choice between legal and not legal, and then you haven't ceded the ground for that question to be victorious and to go your direction. And so now in other words, why don't we have that question minimum standard, or that discussion, that debate minimum standard post November 5? Why can't it wait?
Well, that would be perfectly fine. Two things. That would be perfectly fine. We cannot see that this is a states only position, that we don't have to have that now. But let me just say this. Trump, who I have known since 2015, and I am, we in the pro-life movement are great. We wouldn't even be having this discussion if it weren't for those justices and our helping him win in those battleground states. So yes, we've arrived. As soon as you arrive, arriving to the left means that he owns, and he does, and he's proud of it, and he should be. He owns Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade of the overturn of Roe v. Wade.
Right.
And so that is the question of legalization or not. That is what he has to. So it's his. They want to federalize it again. They're the ones on the left who are gonna overturn every pro-life protection. A 15-week as a contrast is a contrast that you pray for in politics, because 15 weeks doesn't please really that many people on the left and the right, but it pleases 70% in the middle. Yeah, because they basically want legalization, but they don't want that kind of legalization up into the end. So it's a contrast that works. But look, he's already said he's not doing it, and so what we have to do is defeat Biden to keep him from wiping out every single pro-life protection. And that is the long-term measurement, as you allude to, basically imply that it is the longer term, hopefully not too long-term, but it's a pro-life movement, and which is an ever-growing group of people who are thinking deeply about this, where if it is a human right and not a matter of geography, we need to communicate that and look at that person we're talking about. Not a piece of trash, definitely intended for the world. And I think that's where that argument will lead to better policy prescriptions in the future.
Hey, Marjorie, I wanted to get your opinion because yesterday I'm sure you saw the Stop the World from Gaza protests in San Francisco, Chicago, at airports in San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle. I'm sure you saw it in New York as well. Those people were ticketed. I know that there's more than 50 arrested here just received tickets, but you have people who sit in front of an abortion clinic and they face 11 years in prison for criminal conspiracy against civil rights.
What an important point you just made. Yes. It really, that is not equal protection under the law. Equal protection of the right to protest in the First Amendment. They're not being equally protected. And certainly, I'm sorry to say, in your state, the state of Chicago, though you're national, I realize, but certain states, certain rights, that should never be the case. And that is why there is a bill that has had a lot of debate, but the president would never support, and that is basically those people that you're talking about on the pro-life side, protection of their rights. There is a young woman in the jail in Alexandria, Virginia, who managed to rescue the remains of children who had been aborted at the very end, and it's very obvious. I mean, they're fully formed children, 5 children that were just close to being born, and because she rescued those remains and took a picture of them, she is still sitting in jail in Alexandria right now. And look at the contrast that you just made with just people getting tickets.
Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of SBA, Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America. Marjorie, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Such a delight. I look forward to it again.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss